well, Eurocentrism, not a fan, but I'm definitely not a fan of xenocentrism too. They talk as if they're the only civilized people on Earth, or at least in this part of the world, which is so annoying, right? The Japanese are annoyed by that. The Koreans are annoyed by that. Most of us are annoyed by that. So I think that's where also the importance comes in. And that's why mahalaga na basic education pa lang, i-remind natin yung mga kababayan natin na hindi sila mag-isip ng xenocentric, na lahat tayo mga savages na umakyat lang ng ano, tapos mga Chinese lang ang may civilization. We have to push back against it, and I think this is where the maps come in. Now, Justice, I'm going to put you a little bit in a different spot. What is your what's happening on the domestic front? Because, you know, one reason perhaps China is feeling very confident in pushing the envelope is because they have friends in the Philippines, right? And some of their friends are really in trouble, right? I mean, what is this Quadcom, this like 4 committees coming together, investigating Duterte and all of that, you know, all of this expose about Bongo and Duterte planning crazy stuff against Trillanes, and Trillanes now coming after that. How are you reading this part? Because I know, Justice, you're a foreign policy, geopolitics guy. Both of us are the same in that sense, but we have to care about domestic politics too, because it affects our foreign policy. The two are very much connected. Do you feel things are moving in the right direction, that the walls are closing in on the people who messed around too much with our sovereignty and sovereign rights back in the day?
Yeah, I think the day of reckoning is coming closer because what I'm hearing is that a warrant of arrest will be issued by the ICC sometime in September, and Congress is now investigating the pogos, the gambling, the human trafficking, and the connection of Michael Young. So it's all coming out now that somehow former
The
President
walls are
Duterte,
closing in. The walls are closing in on these people.
these are all connected to President Duterte. I mean, Michael Young was his economic advisor, very close friend of Duterte. And of course, you see the pictures. The mayor of Bamban was there. More will come out, and many are willing to testify also. So I think we're getting a clearer picture of what happened in the last 6 years.
So the ICC could come more or less before the election starts and before the certificate of candidacy, because that was the question I had when I was at The Hague the other month. I know it's going to come later this year, but tell me before elections or not. I mean, certificate of candidacy. And somehow I got similar answers. Justice, what about Sara Duterte? Because she's still the vice president. Is she also vulnerable to potential impeachment? Obviously, it's easy to say impeachment is not going to happen based on history, based on schedule, September 30 yata yung break. But we know that there was an exemption made last year whereby hearings can continue beyond September 30 all the way to November. Do you think that there could be also impeachment cases filed against Sara, considering ang daming bases na pwede gamitin to file impeachment at least against her? And then siguro next year na kung aakyat ito sa Senate or anything like that, considering how complicated impeachment is. Or do you think at least just the prospect of impeachment against Sara is something that could keep them honest, if I can put it that way?
Well, it's possible that that some congressmen will file an impeachment case because, of course, if a warrant of arrest is issued against her also, no, and there's the confidential fund, and they're asking
Ano mga
now.
grounds, Justice, do you think are because there are multiple grounds for filing impeachment? What are the potential grounds if theoretically a congressman were to file, right, or a citizen were to ask a congressman to file it? I mean, there could be many grounds, right? Yeah.
There's a ground of betrayal of public trust. That's a catch-all provision.
Catch-all. So
I mean,
medyo malawak.
everything can fall there.
Exactly. So
and the confidential fund is also investigated, being investigated by the House, and they have subpoenaed the records from the COA, how Vice President Duterte spent that $125 million, and my group has also filed a case before the Supreme Court questioning the constitutionality of confidential funds. So hopefully that all of this will be resolved in time for the next election, or at least in time for the 2028 election.
And do you think the next election could be Team Philippines versus Team China in those stark terms? I mean, obviously, many will pretend to be Team Philippines dati kay Digong sila. But, I mean, Tolentino resigning from PDP Laban very openly over West Philippine Sea. And can you tell us
Yes,
a little bit about the
yes.
story of Tolentino? Because we wanted to talk about this actually last week, hindi nakatugma yung schedule natin. And what was the Senate debate about maritime boundary delimitation and all of that? If you could educate our friends and audience about that,
Yeah.
Justice.
Well,
This whole
Senator
Tolentino affair.
Tolentino is the principal sponsor of the Maritime Zones bill in the Senate, and it was approved by the Senate, approved in the House, and it went to the conference committee, and the conference committee approved the conference report. The House ratified it and sent the conference their enrolled bill to the Senate to be sent to the president, but something happened along the way. And this is a very murky now because some people are saying that the office of the president uh, asked the Senate not to submit the bill for the signature of the president. That's very strange because it was already approved by both houses. Uh, and so there was a second conference to address objections of supposed objections of the office of president, but these objections were never shown to the House. There was a letter circulated, but it was unofficial. Nevertheless, the conference committee met. They tweaked some of the provisions, and then the House ratified it again, and the Senate uh, conference committee report has not been signed as of now, per my latest information, because somebody is holding it again. There is one person who's apparently has the capacity to hold back what has been approved by the entire Senate. It's very strange.
Oh, wait, this is a senator or this is a...
Well, apparently, it's somebody in the Senate who is holding the transmittal of the enrolled bill.
Yeah, I think
So
I know who
it's
you're
very
talking about.
strange. It's very strange. Why would somebody stop it when the president himself said, when he was in Shangri-La, he said, I will sign the maritime zones bill. And in the SONA, in his State of the Nation address, he again repeated it. I will sign it. But apparently, somebody is messing up everything, preventing the transmittal of the enrolled bill to the office of the president.
Is this out of personal conviction or potentially undue influence or nefarious foreign influence?
That's
Yeah.
something that we have to
Yeah.
establish because
Yeah.
I experienced
Yeah.
this kind of guerrilla tactics during the arbitration. There were people trying to sabotage the arbitration case from our end. And it's very possible that the same thing is happening now. And it's very strange because the senators have approved it. The congressmen have approved it. Why is it not being sent to the president for signature?
There could be a sabotage, no? Yeah, it could
Yes,
be a sabotage. Yeah.
and it, it reflects badly on our on our institutions because this could be a malign influence.
Absolutely. And speaking of malign influence, this is the last part I want to discuss with you, Justice. I know we started a little bit late. So now you have this report from Rappler in conversation with sources in the intelligence services in the Philippines. I suspect NICA, AFP, among others, saying that they have already identified a Chinese journalist who used to be a bureau chief of a Shanghai-based daily, who has been publishing not very much, but seems to be meeting a lot of people in Manila, and seems to be very busy. Every time there's an incident in the Ayungin Shoal or Rore, few days before or after, he's immediately meeting so many people, right? So he doesn't even need to ask leading questions. Immediately, things are gonna fall in his lap. Um, is there a serious ring of high-quality Chinese spies? Because this person, for instance, was a bureau chief in Washington, so medyo operating it at the highest levels. Is China sending their ace team, or at least one of their best teams, to do some high-quality espionage, and potentially may even explain what we have been discussing, this crazy sabotage, potential sabotage situation, and what has to be done, Justice Carpio, without us turning paranoid against anyone from China or any journalists from China, if even real journalism is allowed in a communist country like China.
Well, apparently we're being targeted by China, and you just have to look at uh, the agreement during Duterte's time, where they could put up cellular towers in all military camps nationwide. Can you just imagine that? DITO, which is affiliated with the China Telecoms, it's state-owned telecom company of China. It owns 40% of DITO and is the biggest creditor of DITO. And and they were able to get the AFP uh, to allow them to put up towers, communication towers, in all military camps. And I understand the military, our Filipino military officers, fought a rearguard action to delay this until Duterte was out
While
of office,
Duterte
and
was
they
there, right?
refused.
Yeah, they held the line. Exactly. It's
Yeah,
not
they
just
held the
media.
line, and they
Military held the line
never
too. Yeah.
implemented it until Duterte left, and so they're pretty safe now. But this is part of that. It's a part of the subversion of our institutions by China, and it's very clear. It's very clear.
And what do you think we should do? Should we push ahead now with this Foreign Influence Act legislation that has been being passed? And what kind of a whole of nation approach should we have? Should our colleagues in the media and all, and colleagues in the academy, be a little bit double careful when they're dealing with some of these Chinese journalists without being prejudicial, unnecessarily?
Yes, we should revisit the Foreign Agent Registration Act. Uh, we have actually a law, but it was never used during the time of Marcos Sr. There was a law. It was passed, but we have to update that. And even the Confucius Institutes, UP, Ateneo, and some schools have Confucius Institutes, and it's one way. They establish a Confucius Institute in our campuses here, but there's no reciprocity. We cannot establish Rizal Institutes in China. So they can distribute materials on the 9-dash line, 10-dash line here, but we cannot distribute our counter arguments in China. So we have to look at this on a more even keel. If we allow them in our campuses, we should have also right, at least, to put up the same facilities in their campuses, and they will never agree. Because
Reciprocity, exactly.
yeah,
Reciprocity.
they will never agree. The moment we demand reciprocity, they will never agree.
But will they accept if ever Kiboloy escapes to China in the coming months and all? Do you think, Justice, baka ngayon na baka ano ba yan, 3-in-1 ba nila yan? Isabay na nila si Kiboloy and Digong and Batoy. Is that the plan eventually?
Well, I will not be surprised if that happens.
3-in-1 ang tawag ko dyan, 3-in-1. I mean, a lot of terms I threw out here sa mga podcast natin, parang ginagamit na ngayon yung Team Philippines versus Team China. Matagal ko na sinasabi yan, yung Grand Coalition. Ngayon naman tawag ko dyan 3-in-1. Baka isabay na lahat ng itong mga dodgy characters together. Isabay nila. Super thank you, Justice Carpio, for that really, really amazing conversation. I think everyone enjoyed this, and my apologies if we started a little bit later than usual. Thank you, Justice. Is there something you want to add before we close this episode, and hopefully next week continue on this conversation even on a more positive note? So you're really confident, no? September, no? So before filing of certificate of candidacy, more or less this ICC warrants of arrest are gonna. Siguro we're just not sure sinong kasama aside from, I don't know, Bato maybe or Digong, something like that. Ano bang hindi natin alam dyan? What are the known unknowns?
Well, the way what I'm hearing is that they'll probably have warrants of arrest issued in tranches. Maybe Digong will come out first, and then the second tier, the third tier, it will be in tranches.
Medyo thirst trap. Thirst trap yata ang tawag dyan sa Instagram. Medyo teaser. Then. Interesting times, Justice Carpio. Interesting times. Keep safe, keep strong, mabuhay ka, and I hope to catch you next week. Obviously, for some people who are not familiar, I'm also launching this new kapihan, right? Sa Cafe Adriatico.
Yes, we'll meet you at the kapihan. Okay.
Yes, and so this will be our own kapiyan, and we have, God willing, inshallah, you, Justice Carpio, of course, Secretary Llamas, Admiral Ong. So all stars yun, all stars yun. And with some folks also from the government side, so that it could be a kind of diverse conversation. Thank you very much, Justice Carpio. Looking forward to catching up with you in person and also hopefully on Zoom if there's some developments soon. God bless po. Talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Thank you to our viewers.
As always po. God bless po.